So I'll read this verse again. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 16, entitled The Payovrata Process of Worship. Text 25. In the bright fortnight of the month of Falgun, February and March, for 12 days, ending with Dwadashi, one should observe the vow of subsisting only on milk and should worship the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead with all devotion. So we're hearing the story of Kashyapa Muni and his wife Aditi. Kashyapa Muni, after he emerged from Samadhi, he was in meditation for many years. He observed that his wife Aditi had become morose. And actually the ashram, his ashram as well, is described that it lost all of its beauty. So he questioned Aditi as to the cause of this. And he suggested perhaps this is the reason, perhaps that is the reason. And finally Aditi, she told him the real reason that she was lamenting. It was because she lost her sons. She saw so much how her sons suffered. They suffered being dishonored. And so this is, the heart of a mother, often, that the mind of a mother is always on her children. However old they get, still, these are my children. A mother's thinking about their benefit, their protection. And it causes great pain when the children suffer. Just like when the Pandavas were exiled, who suffered the most? It's actually Kunti suffered the most when the Pandavas were exiled. So it's natural, especially for a mother, that the great pain a mother experiences is because the mind is always on the children and the welfare of the child. So it's natural. Yet Kashyapa, when he's kind of seeing, he just comes out of Samadhi for many years, and he comes to see his wife, and so we can, just by that, we know he's on a very high level of consciousness to be able to enter Samadhi. With the absorption, the meditation, your concentration is so focused and deep to enter this state of trance. So many people are practicing meditation. We've created so many new kinds of meditation. How many people actually enter Samadhi? It was just one of the real points of the original ideas of meditation. It's actually not even the goal. It's just another limb. It's the eighth limb. So it's still part of just the practice, Samadhi. So now we kind of create all sorts of meditations for our particular time and age, and those can be helpful in different ways, but you can imagine what the concentration was. And so Kashyapa Muni comes out of the Samadhi and he sees his wife and he hears why she's suffering. And he sees things also on a higher perspective. So he marveled. And there's a verse that was previously read, I think, for all of you. And he says, "Alas, how powerful is the illusory energy of the Lord by which the entire material world is bound by family attachment." So he has this perspective. There's the Lord's material energy. We say primarily Krishna has three energies: the material energy. We also talk a lot about the spiritual energy. And there's also an energy in between the two. And that's very significant for us because it's very hard to go from material energy, material consciousness, to spiritual consciousness. In fact, material consciousness cannot produce a spiritual quality. So isn't that interesting? Because we're trying to produce spiritual qualities with being under material consciousness, which is an impossibility. But there is another energy. And I heard this verse, I've mentioned it before, but it kind of revolutionized how I see bhakti. It's from Sanatana Goswami in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And he says that one cannot perform pure devotional service, or one can only perform pure devotional service from the platform of Tatastha. That's interesting. Tatastha, to be on the platform of Tatastha. Well, we might think, well, I'm a human being, so I'm always on the platform of Tatastha. But not exactly. We're usually on the platform of material consciousness. But there is another consciousness which is called Tatastha. And he says the word that can help us understand a little bit what it means to be on the Tatastha platform is Sakshitva, witnesshood. That you're the witness. That you're witness, instead of reacting to everything in life, you're focused on your reactions to everything happening in life. You're focused on observing, witnessing yourself, witnessing your nature. If we look very closely, if we're always just keeping our eye on ourselves in our own heart, we'll start to realize, and not just theoretically hear about it and talk about it, but we'll start to realize that I'm being driven by an egocentric nature. But a part of me also longs for purity and for love and for freedom. So there's one part of me that I see by my own self-observation. I'm seeing that, wow, the ego is just egocentric. The ego is in the center of my life. All the decisions, all my thoughts, everything is revolving around me, just like all the planets are revolving around the sun. So in my life, I'm like that sun, and everything, the objects, people, everything is revolving around me. Doesn't mean this person is evil. It's just egocentric. Just the self is in the center. Some people can do that very nicely, but the self is still in the center. Some people can be very kind and sweet, but the self is still in the center, and that's the real issue. So it doesn't mean like an evil demon person that we're self-centered. It just is philosophically, we can just understand it as this is what's happening. And so there's that, but if I look close in my own heart, there's also something else. There's something that wants to overcome that and wants to love and wants to serve. So this is the Tatastha platform that we actually have to live on and not just theoretically think about. Do we notice that? Do we notice these two things within myself? Do I notice that I'm on the border of two energies? That's the point, because that's what Tatastha means. You're on the border of the material energy and the spiritual energy. People in this world don't realize they're on the border. They only know the material energy. And therefore they're entrapped, and therefore that consciousness can never produce spiritual qualities, can never understand the spiritual reality, spiritual nature. But once you start to feel within yourself that these two things are actually within you, and you're standing right on the border and you have choices, then you're on a different platform of consciousness. This is the Tatastha. we are Tatastha, but we have to realize we're Tatastha. And the whole creation also manifests this reality. We're in the material world. So if we could go up with a spaceship, which we can't, but if we could just keep going up, 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 up. Before you enter the spiritual realm, you go through the border, which is a kind of position that's in between material and spiritual. Right? Well, you could say it's the Brahman platform also, because it's spirit, but somehow without the variety and the qualities of the spiritual world, but it's not material either. So there is something in between, right? We talk about the Viraj River also, that's separating material and spiritual. So this is a very interesting comment by Sanatana Goswami, that pure devotional service can only be achieved or performed from the platform of Tatastha. So it's a little bit different than just ordinary consciousness. If that's all we think we are, that's why Prabhupada again and again, you are not this body, you are not this mind. Because if that's all we really are, then performing devotional service and pure devotional service and will be impossible unless there is some special mercy. There's always mercy. Even to touch the platform is mercy, because as soon as all of this is the mercy of the Lord, he just has to see that we have a sincere desire for it. To even be aware of this knowledge is the mercy of the Lord. Here we are discussing this very deep. None of us came up with these ideas and, from our intelligence. Somehow this has been given to us, and now we just have an opportunity. So we should know that Krishna is making these arrangements. He's reciprocating this with us right now by allowing us to hear this, discuss this, feel this in our heart. So well, I didn't expect to get into that whole thing with Tatastha platform, but Kashyapa Muni, you see, he's seeing things from that way. She's suffering due to attachment to her sons, which is very natural, as we said. But his first response is he's seeing the energies of the Lord interacting. You see, that's Tatastha platform. It means you're seeing, he says, alas, how powerful is the illusory energy of the Lord by which the entire material world is bound by family attachment. He's seeing how the whole world is bound by this Maya Shakti. You see, that is seeing from this higher perspective. That is seeing more on the level of Tatastha rather than just me and my little world and all the little problems I have, the 1,001 problems that we have every day. But we see that the modes of nature, in the mode of ignorance, the vision is locked into something very small. Sometimes, when a person who is depressed or a person who has a strong addiction to some drug, that's all that exists. That's all they can see. In the mode of passion, you can see a little bit more. The many problems of my life, maybe not just this one thing that's absorbing me, but I'm here and I'm there and I'm restless. In the mode of goodness, you start to see a little more. You start to see principles that are working in life. You start to have higher goals. And then from the transcendental platform, you can say things like this that Kashyapa Muni is saying, seeing that this particular energy of the Lord is covering every living being and covering me. But yet there is another energy, as Krishna says in Gita. He explains about the material energies, yet there is another energy. So that is very hard for the common person to know or to see or to believe. But as we go on the spiritual path, we can find it within ourselves. We can find it. That there's a part of me that longs for that. That's the indication of it. The longing for it. Okay, so as Kashyapa mentioned, that we're all bound by attachment. We're attached to each other. We're attached to so many objects. We're attached to our personal goals. We're attached to our own ideas of what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong, what is meaningful. And you could describe spiritual life very simply by saying that it just means to become attached to God, first and foremost. We're attached to so many other things without the attachment to God, and that's where it all goes wrong. We can't have proper relationships until a connection with God, the attachment to God, first manifests. As soon as that happens, as soon as the heart reconnects to the Supreme, our source, to God, then all our other relationships, they fall into place. Not that they become perfect without any problems, but we understand now in a new way. We can love with a different kind of love, and we have a new understanding. So it all falls into place from that one connection. So that because Krishna is the center of everything. So as soon as I connect properly with the center, now my connection with all of the parts fall into place. If I don't connect to the center and I'm just trying to connect to all the parts, it will never be the right kind of connection. It will be attachment, but attachment that can sometimes be harmful, more like clinging in an unhealthy way, right? Two people are they're just attached, and we call that love. They can't, let go, and no matter what, no matter how bad this relationship is, we're still just so much in love that we can't let go. It's not quite love. And sometimes we're just supporting each other's false egos, and we call that love. There's no spiritual knowledge of what's happening. But when the attachment is directed to Krishna, when we relink, when we reconnect, because he is the center of everything, he's the root of everything, then that connection changes us, and then all our relationships and how we see life and how we think and how we feel, all of that starts to follow, starts to get realigned, and we get an understanding of how to relate, how to understand life. So what's mentioned here in this purport is the process of doing that, getting attached to Krishna through the process of deity worship. It's very sweet and simple how Prabhupada describes deity worship. He told the devotees once that whatever he has given us in ISKCON in terms of deity worship, he said, basically, I just learned that from my father. And in this purport, it seems like something like that, the way he describes deity worship. It's very simple, sweet, intimate. He said one should install the deity of Lord Vishnu or Krishna and worship him nicely by dressing him, decorating him with flower garlands, and offering him all kinds of fruits, flowers, and cooked food, nicely prepared with ghee, sugar, and grains. One should also offer a flame, incense, and so on while ringing a bell as prescribed. This is called worship of the Lord. In the West, we sometimes have a barrier to deity worship, mostly from the Christian conceptions that are there. A lot of people fear deity worship because of the understanding or idea of idol worship. You're worshiping some idol. So that's a barrier for many people. But we can see within our tradition that once Westerners get past that barrier that may be there for some, that deity worship really works in terms of, their connection to God. And you see the devotees all over the world, they have certain attachments to the deities that are maybe in their city or in their temple, and they start to develop a relationship. They look forward to seeing those deities. They pray to those deities for so many years. And there starts to actually be a genuine appreciation and love. And so there are some ideas that sometimes prevent a person from feeling that comfort in doing that. But once you break through and you start to have faith and you start to trust this process, we see practically, I mean, I know so many people that when they talk about particular deities, right, devotees who talk about particular deities that they know and that they love and that they've had a relationship for so many years, it can bring them to tears. And this description here by Prabhupada is so sweet, just, offering flowers, fruits, this service, because, and this is the science of it, that service, that service, that continuous service of trying to please Krishna through this form, the Archana Vigraha, that starts to reveal God to us. God is not revealed in any other way. It says here, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatprataha. Krishna says in the Gita that he is known by service. That's so interesting. He's not known by... People want to see God, Prabhupada would often say, as if he's just some material object that we might find one day, in some part of the world that we've never been to. There he is. There's proof, finally, we found him, as if he's just a material object we're going to stumble upon. He's completely spiritual. And our eyes, our ears, our nose, everything is material. And he's spiritual. So, atah shikishna namadi nabavet grayam indriya. These senses cannot perceive spirit. So what's the method? How are we going to see? How are we going to experience? It has nothing to do with these eyes. It has to do with a desire, an inclination, something very deep in the heart, that the willingness to serve. Because again, that shows that we are longing. How do you express your longing for God? How do you show that something in you is longing for God? By acts of love, by acts of service. There's one place Prabhupada says, this is the challenge of Krishna consciousness. You cannot see God, but still you have to love him. This is a nice, you can hear this in a lecture. It was recorded. I'd have to find it, but it's from the first canto. But he says, this is the challenge. You cannot see God, but still you have to love him. We cannot see God, but still we have to worship him. You cannot see God, but still you have to serve him. So what would cause us, what causes you to continue serving, worshiping, and loving God even though you can't see him? What's causing you to do that? That's what we have to ask ourselves, because that is what is most special that's going on inside of us. That is the most holy, sacred thing that we have. That thing, because it's showing such sincerity that, oh God, I'm not waiting for you first to show yourself to me, and then I'll love you, and then I'll serve you. No, we're reversing that. We're saying, I can't see you, and yet I'm going to show that still I want to love you, and I'm still going to serve you, and I'm still going to worship you until the day I die. In many lives, I'll never stop. That shows Krishna our sincerity. And because it's bhakti, that's bhakti. Then he will reveal himself to such a person when he's ready. And that's part of our surrender as well, when he's ready. We're also not demanding. I've been a devotee for so long, I've served so much. See, we still have that little desire, but show yourself to me. You know, give me the real proof. And that consciousness does not reveal Krishna. The consciousness that reveals Krishna is that you never have to show yourself to me, and I'll still worship you. You never have to become visible to my eyes, and still I will serve you. That consciousness, then Krishna says, I'm yours, because what is that? That's unconditional. It's not to demand Krishna to do something, and then I'll continue or serve. I'll do. This is called conditional love, and to say, Krishna, it's completely. You have complete freedom, but I'm going to go on serving you because I long to reconnect to you. And that's it. Nobody can take that away from me. And it's so important to connect to that desire in our heart, because then gossip doesn't matter. Then different arguments against God doesn't matter. I used to be into like debates of like the existence of God and all that, and none of that matters anymore, because there's something in me that simply wants God. And I feel like it's the deepest thing in me, and it's the most sincere thing in me. And so whatever is said, we can ask ourselves too, what if all of ISKCON, the whole ISKCON society, just dissolved? Would you still be a devotee of Krishna? What if everybody left? Or what if there was some controversy and everybody left? Or what if all these people just fell down from their position and it was a disaster and the whole society shuts down? Would you still be a devotee of Krishna? Well, if you've connected that there's a desire for Krishna in the heart, then yes, you should be able to say yes to that. It shouldn't be dependent on what's happening with the society, or what controversy is happening, or what fall down took place. What does that have to do with my longing for Krishna? Now, we need devotees, of course, so it's not like I can just do it alone. But what's driving me, it's important to realize it is that longing, because nothing can take that away. And no mistake or outside situation can stop me from continuing, because it's something I want, that I long for. So otherwise, all these things can kind of trick. It's Maya tricking us, that if some devotees have some issue or something and they leave, and then I also will leave, because it shows that I didn't somehow contact that my own desire. And it's amazing, the longing. Now, the meaning of the name Krishna. Why is there a longing in the heart? Krishna means to attract. There's a longing in the heart because something is attracting us. You see the relationship between in the heart, there's something that is reaching out, that is longing. And then Krishna, his very nature is that he draws you in, he attracts. So the idea of the longing and then the name Krishna, it's like this is the fit, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, his very nature is that he attracts, he draws you in, and that's why we're longing. So the process has already begun of returning to Krishna for all of us. Otherwise, why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep returning? Why are we hearing? Why are we chanting? Why are we seeking association of devotees? Why are we serving? It's already happening in the heart, and we just have to consciously cooperate with that process that's already happening in our hearts. Do it very consciously. So when we chant, we can connect. Okay, yeah, let me connect for a moment to that longing in my heart for Krishna. When we hear, to hear in that way. We associate with devotees, we appreciate them, we serve them. Always conscious of that longing in the heart. And that longing is there is because the only reason why that longing is there is because Krishna is all attractive. And something has awakened within us, and now we have to be attracted. You have to long. Once the soul awakens to some extent, you have to long. That's just the nature. It's like a magnet in a piece of metal. They have to be attracted to each other. So and I'll end here, but this is the whole idea of deity worship. It's very sweet, it's very intimate. You're starting to direct your attention, your mind, your service to the form of the Lord. And here it's mentioning, a certain process. There are always rules and regulations. So Paya Vrata process, drinking only milk. So all of that's there, but we know that the essence is the bhakti. Just in that story with Lord Chaitanya, that brahmachari who was hiding. It's funny, I was thinking of that because, this is all about this process of, drinking only milk. And he was famous for drinking only milk. And, Mirage tells that pastime a lot, but when Lord Chaitanya is kind of yelling at the end of that pastime, do you think that drinking only milk, do you think that will be the qualification to see me and to know me and to have my mercy? Get this milk drinker out of here, Maharaj says in one place. Get this milk drinker out of here. So, yes, there's always rules, there's always some regulations, there's always some process, but that's not really the important thing. It's the bhakti. And actually, Lord Chaitanya, when this devotee, this brahmachari who drank only milk, he was able to see the Lord for a short time before he was found out. And he had this bhakti in his heart because after when he was kicked out and he went outside, then Lord Chaitanya also was very pleased with him and he came out. Because of his eagerness and his desire to see the Lord dance, Lord Chaitanya recognized that the bhakti was there and he placed his lotus foot on his head. So we're about what the Payovrata process is all about, drinking only milk and worshiping this form of the Lord. And in this way awakening our love for God, which is already there, that love for God. And we just have to realize we're already operating with that love of God. It's very small, but it is again that longing, that desire to serve, that sincerity. That is your love of God awakening. So now we just have to consciously see it and continue. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I didn't speak any of it. I kind of went into my own thing, but hopefully you got something from it, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Hey Krishna, Ghanashyam, thank you so much for bringing out this beautiful point about longing in the heart and connecting to it and seeing that in our practices of devotional service. So it's so inspiring. I have an anonymous question. So it's about, I'm just paraphrasing it. It's about how can we not get attached to things of this world, and how is deity worship actually useful in achieving that? Why is deity worship involved in there for that?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have to get attached to things in this world. Attachment is so powerful. Just like, again, Kashyapa Muni is marveling by saying, wow, the whole world is bound by attachment. So once, by performing deity worship, and once that love and the attachment gets directed to the center, to Krishna, from that connection, then the quality of your attachment to others can change. And it doesn't have to, we don't have to wait until that moment where I'm fully attached to Krishna. Even during the process of hearing, chanting, we start to see that love, attachment means something else. We should be attached to each other, family members, husbands and wives, but there's a quality of it where you have attachment, you have affection, you have a sense of responsibility, there's a sense of duty, but there's also a detachment there. You also know that this is another soul on another journey, and I can also let this person be and let this person go. This is not my property. So even just by hearing the gradual awakening of Krishna consciousness, the nature of our attachments can change. So you will get attached. And if you have none of that, if there's no spiritual connection or spiritual opportunities like this, then that's all there is. It's just attachment, and you suffer because it can't there's, not that some people don't have good relationships and so forth. That's always there. But it's a mix of kind of some happiness and some pain, but ultimately it's temporary, and so it creates great pain. Um, so attachment, yes, it's true. It is there, and it will be there. As the gradual process of Krishna consciousness, the nature of your attachment to others, uh, you'll start to see things in a new way, and you'll start to understand what it really means to be attached in a healthy way, which means a love, affection, responsibility, yet this is not the most important thing in my life. This is not this is not everything. I don't put everything into this one person. That would be foolish. The relationship is temporary. You put everything into Krishna, and then we'll see that in the right way, and we'll actually be a better friend. We'll be a better companion, because we love and we also let the person be, let the person go when that time comes as well. And that's a gift. That's a rare love. That's a deeper love. Hope that helps.